I think I would go with how important education is. That education is something that no one can ever take away from you. Push on the education. The more you can do on that, the more you can submit yourself to that rigor, the stronger and the better you're going to be for it. And the more opportunities are going to open up. Because a corollary of that is you also meet amazing people when you're studying. And then that leads to great friendships. It can also lead to great business opportunities, but don't do it for that reason. Do it for the pursuit of education and knowledge.
Hello, I'm Alexander, and welcome to Trailheads and Titans, where we learn from the titans who are shaping industries and inspiring the next generation. In this episode, I'm joined by someone who plays a key role in connecting the entire global mining community, Anthony Vaccaro, president of the Northern Miner Group. I'm really excited to have this conversation, especially since I'll be in London, UK soon for Resourcing Tomorrow and the Northern Miner International Metals Symposium. Two incredible events that really bring together leaders from all over the world. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Alexander. Thanks for having me on.
Could you please introduce yourself a bit and share briefly about what you do?
Of course, yeah, I'd love to. So you did a great intro there. I am the president of the Northern Miner Group. I would emphasize the group part. In the mining, and the reason why I say that, in the mining industry, the Northern Miner is this very, very respected, long-standing media brand. It's the place of record for the mining industry, kind of like the New York Times, if you will, of mining. It's been around since 1915. It's always covered the industry from an independent perspective. So we have very good journalists of high integrity who just write what they want to write. And sometimes that means that the mining industry might not want to hear it, right? Sometimes it can be critical, but it's always from a place where it starts from a place that it's respectful of the fact, the indisputable fact, that mining is essential to our civilization, to our modern world. The mining inherently is beneficial and can be a very good thing when done properly. So we start from that point of view. So the Northern Miner is itself an advocate for good mining, for the mining industry, but still holds the industry to account. So we're not just here to cheerlead on the industry. We also point out when the industry gets it wrong. And that's made it this incredible brand that is often associated with Canada because it was founded in Canada, but it actually covers the global mining industry. So it covers projects around the world. When I used to be a reporter, I was lucky enough to travel around the world and see lots of projects on many continents while reporting for the Northern Miner. But the group part, Alexander, the group part is because we also have mining.com, which is one of the biggest online news presences for the mining industry. It's a great site. It's kind of quicker news. The Northern Miner will do a more deeper feature story. Mining.com generally is a little bit of a quicker hit, but surveys the whole industry upstream, which means more exploration, also downstream, which is mineral processing into things like magnets and metals and the sort of things that we all use in our daily lives would be considered downstream. Mining.com covers that as well. And the third and final piece of the group is something called Canadian Mining Journal, which is a beautiful glossy magazine, and it's online as well. That's even older than the Northern Miner. It goes back to the 1880s. And it's the only one that's not international. It covers just Canada, and it looks at development and operating mines, and is very strong on technology. So for any of your listeners that are maybe interested in what the latest technology on mine sites is, Canadian Mining Journal is where you would go. So that's the group. I was a journalist myself for 10 years before I did my MBA and my CFA, and that put me in a position to become the head of the group. So I've been in this position for the last 10 years. So 10 years as a writer, 10 years as the head of the group.
If you don't mind me asking, where did you manage to travel to?
Oh, I think, one day my son was asking me that, so I tallied it up, and I think I got up to about 42 different countries. So a lot of different places. It was definitely a big appeal for me. It's why I got into the mining sector, covering it for media. I did a summer internship at Dow Jones Newswire as a stock market reporter. And I thought the mining industry was very, very fascinating. So I saw this opening at Northern Miner. They said travel. They said I would be in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. If I got the job, I'd be in the Congo in 2 weeks. And I said, sign me up. I want to go to the Congo. So I've been to many places in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa in particular. I think I've been to 13 countries there. I've been to Mongolia, all over South America, every country in South America, I think, Asia, Europe. There is amazing mines in Europe. Sweden has a legendary mine called Zinkgruvan, which I've been to. Finland has some incredible gold mines, one of them run by Agnico Eagle, a great Canadian company, which I've been to. And then all around Canada and the States, I've been up to Nunavut. I've been out to Northwest Territories and the Yukon, BC regularly. It's an amazing mining industry. If you like travel, if you have a bit of a sense of adventure, and you like big, colorful characters, because these are the people you're going to meet on these trips, I really can't think of a better sector than mining for those elements anyway.
Is there a country that you think in specific that really impacted you and you thought that kind of helped to guide you for like the rest of your career up until now?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow. That's a really good question. The ones that stand, Mongolia really stands out. Because I was in Mongolia in 2008 and it was just beginning to open up, right? Mongolia, here it is this country with this proud history with Genghis Khan and conquering so much of the world through their military and at the time technological prowess. But, in recent modern times, sandwiched between Russia and China, and I was in a bit of a tug of war. And here was this fledgling mining sector, just kind of coming in and bolstering the economy. But the people weren't, there was a lot of Western companies coming in. There wasn't a lot of trust. It was very much at an early time of people trying to feel it out. What would the impact? And is this even good for our economy? Is this good for our people? And I was there right at that time when those issues were very, very hot. There was a company that was developing a great mine called Oyu Tolgoi, which is now held by Rio Tinto, which is one of the biggest mining companies in the world. But at this time, it was being developed by a company called Ivanhoe, which was run by one of the mining industry's most famous mining entrepreneurs, Robert Friedland. So I was there to visit the Ivanhoe facility. But in that process, I got to go to the Gobi Desert. I got to see a lot of these projects. I also got to see some old Soviet mines. And I got to meet with a lot of local people because they were interested that I was a journalist coming from Canada. They wanted to meet me, young students, government officials. So in a nutshell, I ended up being a bit of a nexus for both the old Soviet mines, for the new mines that were coming out of the West, for the young people that saw hope but had skepticism. It was all this wonderful time, and thinking, my goodness, if the mining industry can get this right, what an incredible opportunity. And I have not been back to Oyu Tolgoi, or the Ulaanbaatar is the capital. I was in Ulaanbaatar for about 5 days of this trip. But everything that I read and I hear from people that do go is how much it changed since I went there, how much it did help the economy, that now there's glass skyscrapers where there used to just be Soviet era concrete blocks. So it has had an impact. It has grown the economy. It did usher in a new era of economic growth and opportunity for young people. And to see it at that time when I was there, pretty amazing.
How did that feel like, apart from amazing? How do you think kind of like it affected like your mindset in a way?
I think we're all searching for purpose, right? We all want to do something in our lives that we feel has a positive impact beyond just our bank accounts. But making money is important. As a journalist back then, I would tell you I wasn't making that much of it. I was making enough to get by. So it wasn't profit motivation. I think we want to know, and for me too, it was early in my career, right? 2008, I started in 2005, 3 years. I had no previous experience with the mining industry, right? As I said, I was a market reporter and I came into it. So for me too, it was a feeling out like, what is this industry about? How much good can it bring? What can it really do when it's done right? And seeing Ivanhoe was doing things the right way. And the people I were meeting were good people. They were being respectful of the environment. They were being respectful of the community. They really wanted to get it right. And it was formative for me in a way, because I saw that when the industry can be a force for positive change and positive economic development and give people opportunities that they otherwise would not have. And that's an important realization, because we all know that there's a lot of negative naysayers about the mining industry. There are spills, there are environmental issues that have happened with the industry. Sometimes people only focus on that and they think that's representative of the entire industry, and they don't realize that it's actually the exception and not the rule. So moments like being in Ulaanbaatar at that time, being in Mongolia, really confirmed for me the positive impact that the industry can have and how connected it is to the hopes of people in countries where they're not as privileged as we are in Canada, with a healthy, robust economy, with a lot of well-paying jobs, right? We forget that. So it takes going to these places, seeing what a mine can mean to someone in terms of a job and a career, seeing that mining can be done in an environmentally responsible way, and seeing how it has that net positive impact on a society and in a community, which was formative for me at that juncture in my career, right? That was the thing.
And you built a career that combines, like you mentioned, journalism, leadership, connection with all these different countries, all these different people. If you think back to when you were my age, what do you think you were curious about, and how do you think that curiosity kind of shaped your path?
Yeah, that's great as well. I think I'm one of the more simple ones, probably. In this, I'm gonna frame that. At 14, I knew I wanted to be a writer. So you look back, and I think from the time I was about 8 years old, I think I started writing in my annual journal, I want to be a writer. So that part was kind of set, and I always gravitated towards that. It was a convoluted path. In my early 20s, I moved to England. I thought I wanted to play in a rock band. I was playing music. I was bartending. So, did my university degree, but I was also, living a more bohemian lifestyle. But I eventually landed back when I was in my late 20s on what I wanted to be when I was your age at 14. So a little bit of a windy road, but kind of got back to where I think I needed to be. And that was fantastic. And it was very fulfilling, and I loved doing it. I did get to a point, though, where I wanted to interact with business in a more direct way. So instead of writing about business, I got to a point in my life where I wanted to actually start to run a business. And that was a transition. So I did more education. I did my MBA, my CFA at weekends and at nights. It was all consuming for about 3 years. But in doing that, it put me in a position where I was able to kind of execute on that ambition and that goal.
Like you mentioned earlier, mining isn't usually like for you, your first passion was, you said, writing, right?
Yeah.
And journalism. And mining isn't usually like the first career that comes to mind for people like my age. So what do you think they're missing about the kind of real value or purpose of the industry, apart from what you mentioned about like doing it properly and actually doing it to help people, and how it like provides jobs, how it can change someone's lives if it's done properly? So yeah, what type of advice do you think you would give to someone who's still figuring it out?
Yeah, no, I think let's the circle back on that, because that was like 3 years in that I started to really see those impacts and those positive things that we talked about in Mongolia. But that wasn't my entry point, right? My entry point, I think this might be helpful for some people. Again, someone that didn't have knowledge or really interest in the mining industry. You said it well. I was interested in writing, wasn't really interested in the mining industry per se. But it was that internship at Dow Jones Newswires where I was a market reporter. So my job, Alexander, was that if a stock moved that day, my job was to come to the office and get on the phone and try to figure out why that stock moved. Call the CEO, call fund managers, call analysts, try to figure out what was going on, which in some ways is a very naive endeavor, because sometimes things move for obvious or reasons, or they move for reasons that you'll never uncover. Regardless, I was interviewing CEOs from many different sectors. And remember, I'm pretty objective in this, right? I'm a writer. I don't really have an affinity for any sector. I'm just writing. And what I found very quickly, two things. One, the mining sector itself was way more interesting. Why? Why? Because it was in Mongolia, the Congo, these frontier places. And by virtue of being in these frontier places, it was butting up against political issues, environmental issues, social issues, which I found fascinating. I always wanted to be a journalist, but I was a philosophy major at university. So the humanitarian studies and things like this were kind of what it was all about. That was my jam. So those issues I found absolutely fascinating. And of all the sectors that are out there, the mining industry is the one that is on the front lines because it's often in very remote parts of the world. Usually mineral deposits are found where there's not much going on. So there's small communities. The mining industry is going to be often the first one in there. So it's defining that social economic relationship with the local inhabitants. So issues arise. It's fascinating stuff. So from a story perspective and from a human perspective, the mining industry was the most fascinating. And then it got better. I said there's two things. That's one. It got even better because then when I get on the phone with the CEOs, the mining CEOs, just in general, and I'm generalizing here, were so much more engaging, entertaining, so much more shoot from the hip. You mentioned that you've interviewed Mark Cutifani. Like, you talked to Mark Cutifani. The guy is absolutely incredible. And our industry has a lot of leaders like this that are just a little more direct. I don't know, I want to say salt of the earth, but there's just something about them. I remember on a few occasions, a mining executive would say some really great quote. And I'd be like, oh, that's too good of a quote. And I'd say, you're on the record, right? And invariably, this happened 2 or 3 times. I'd say, yeah, I know I'm on the record. Don't worry about it. So in other words, they weren't worried about media training. They were worried about, is it true what I said? And if it's colorful and some other executive would never say it, oh, well, that's their problem. That's not the mining sector. So that was really cool. Those two things, the individuals that were running the companies and the way that the industry was intersecting with a lot of bigger issues in the broader society, I found very, very compelling. And that's what pulled me in. And that's what I would encourage people to keep an open mind to if those things are of interest to you.
When you mentioned that some mining leaders have said some specific quotes, and when things have gotten challenging for you, what do you think has kept you motivated? And do you think there's like a habit? Like, for example, some of the people I already interviewed said that they do exercise, reading some specific books, or specific habits that they do that help them stay grounded.
Yes.
Do you think there's one specific that has helped you?
Probably, the usual stuff I do, I grew up playing sports and stuff, so I do try to stay active, and my sons play sports, so I'm out there with them. I would say my maybe slightly more unique one, I definitely force myself to do as much physical labor as possible. And I find that is a really good thing. It balances. So my day job, when I'm at the office, I'm interacting with people, with a computer. I'm not really doing anything physical. I think there's something very, you said the word, it's grounding. It's also calming, and you can kind of rebalance when you're doing something, whether it's, I know right now I'm stripping a bunch of old baseboards and restaining them and repainting them. I'm going to install them. I was building a shelf last weekend. Kind of every weekend I kind of do a manual physical project, and there's always one to be done, so I find them consistently, and that's my counterbalance, right? That kind of just gives me something where it's not like the fast-paced corporate world. It's just me. Sometimes I put music on, sometimes I don't, and it's more of just a physical, almost borderline menial chore. And I think that's really good. It keeps you grounded, keeps you connected to the world in a different way that we can easily get out of touch with if we're just corporate all the time. So that would be my one.
Okay, thank you. And just this is the last question before we wrap up. What, in the shortest way you can say it, what type of advice would you give to the next generation? Because I know that you already mentioned some things, but if you could say just one in a very condensed kind of way, like a quote, what do you think you would say?
I think I would go with how important education is. That education is something that no one can ever take away from you. You can invest a lot of money and make a lot of money and then lose a lot of money, right? You can, so many things in this world, the value of it changes and it's outside of your control. But by focusing yourself on an education, by submitting yourself to something that is very difficult. We all have times when we pursue higher education, we're like, why am I doing this? It's so boring, it's so tedious. Well, that's kind of why it's amazing, because it's forcing you into a rigor. It's forcing you to do something that you don't want to do at times. And in doing that, it's sharpening your mind. It's teaching you habits of perseverance. It's teaching you habits of focus. It's teaching you how to get through something. And those are so valuable when you get into the workplace and when you get into life. So I do think that I cannot stress enough. And what I say to my kids and to anyone that asks, push on the education. The more you can do on that, the more you can submit yourself to that rigor, the stronger and the better you're going to be for it. And the more opportunities are going to open up, because a corollary of that is you also meet amazing people when you're studying. And then that leads to great friendships. It can also lead to great business opportunities, but don't do it for that reason. Do it for the pursuit of education and knowledge, and for the connections that you'll make for people and with people, and good things will come out of that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anthony Vaccaro, for sharing your time, your experience, your wisdom, and all these insights of the people you've met, the countries you've gone to, and your work still continues to shape how the world understands mining. And I think that it inspires many people, young people, including me, to stay curious and look at things and this industry through a bigger, more hopeful lens. So I look forward to seeing you in December in London, UK at Resourcing Tomorrow and the Northern Miner International Metals Symposium. And to everyone listening, don't forget to follow Trailheads and Titans for more conversations with leaders shaping the industries that build our future. Thank you.